Hey, how's it going everyone? ExxotikGaming here, back with another Pixel Gun 3D video. And today's video is another weapon review, this time on a very new weapon introduced into this game only a couple of weeks ago. This is a very cool weapon added into the special section in the most recent update to Pixel Gun 3D, and in my personal opinion is one of my most favorite weapons added into the most recent update to this game. The name of the gun? The Harpoon Gun UP2. Now, I'm pretty sure a lot of you guys are familiar with weapons like the snowball gun, the razor thrower, and the shuriken thrower, and if you are familiar with how those weapons perform, this weapon is very similar. It doesn't have the fastest bullet travel time in the world, but makes up for that loss with its massive amount of power per single shot, and that is why I like this weapon so much. Going into the shop menu and looking at the stats of the weapon here, we can see that this weapon has a 23 lethality, 88 firing rate, 12 capacity, and 120 mobility. It actually has a very good firing rate and capacity ratio. You might be a little surprised because you would think a weapon with a 12 capacity might run out of ammo pretty quickly, but since it only has an 88 firing rate, which is not the fastest firing rate in the world for a special weapon, it doesn't run out of ammo actually that fast. But looking at the stats of the weapon, you cannot really tell how special this weapon actually is. Only when you take this weapon into some actual gameplay will you see how powerful the Harpoon Gun is. Now, despite this weapon actually looking like it wouldn't be the most powerful weapon in the world, this weapon is very, very powerful and can easily take out any sort of armor player that you encounter. Even adamant armored players. Not too many weapons in Pixel Gun 3D can easily take out the max armor level players of Pixel Gun 3D, but this is one of them. It can take out a fully adamant armored player in 2 to 3 headshots, which, if I say anything, I'd say that's pretty powerful. That means that this weapon can easily take out people who even have weapons like the Stormhammer, the Prototype, and some of the assault rifles of this game without much trouble. I was a little surprised when I first got this weapon, when I first started using it in some gameplay, because it doesn't really look like it would be as powerful as it is. It just looks like a very modest, very humble, standard powered weapon in Pixel Gun 3D. But do not be fooled, because this thing can easily take out anyone that it encounters, and it will do it very, very well. I mean, as you guys can see, in an infected prison match, this thing just wrecks. It destroys anybody that it encounters because it is just that good. Even mechs really don't stand that much of a chance against this thing, and it can just tear through anybody that it will encounter. Now, with all that being said about how powerful this weapon is, it does come with a cost. Now, you're not going to be able to use this weapon in maps like Heaven Garden and Parkour City, and even maps like Paradise Resort, because, like I said earlier on in this video, this is a weapon with a bullet travel time, or I guess you could say arrow travel time. That basically means that when you do fire at somebody at a pretty decent range away from you, it won't instantly hit the enemy player. It will take some time before firing to actually reach the enemy player, and at times, that can be a pretty big disadvantage. So, when trying to use this weapon in maps like Paradise Resort and Parkour City and stuff like that, it's really not going to work out too well because the time between firing and hitting the enemy player will just be too great. Now, like I said earlier on, you're probably all familiar with weapons like the shuriken thrower and the razor thrower. I'm going to go talk about the shuriken thrower for the sake that this weapon is very, very similar in terms of its stats. Now, you know that the shuriken thrower is a pretty inaccurate weapon in Pixel Gun 3D, especially when it gets to range, because the shuriken thrower doesn't actually have a scope. But that is where this weapon has that one beat. This one has a scope, and because of that, if you do choose to use this weapon in medium range, it will actually be a lot more accurate than the shuriken thrower, which can be a life or death situation at times. Sometimes if you're using the shuriken thrower and you don't successfully kill them, you might have been able to do so if you were using the harpoon gun, which is why I really do enjoy using this one, because I feel like the scope can really greatly help me in certain times of a match. I mean, as you guys can see, the scope can mean a life or death situation for you, and it's great. It's really, really good, and I'm really happy that Reallysoft did add a scope to this weapon. I just can't get over the fact that this weapon is as powerful as it is by the way it looks. This is very similar to the Bastion in that the Bastion is an area damage weapon, which doesn't look like it would be as powerful as it is, but it actually turned out to be one of the most powerful weapons in the entirety of Pixel Gun 3D. Now, this isn't the most powerful weapon in all of Pixel Gun 3D, but it certainly is in the upper end in terms of power, and you will get great gameplay when using it. I have never been in a match where I absolutely fail when using this weapon, but this is a weapon which you will get some pretty decent gameplay when using. Now, this is also a weapon which will give you a lot of fun gameplay. And to tell you guys the truth, Pixel Gun 3D is all about having fun. This is not one of those super competitive FPS games like CSGO, Call of Duty, Battlefield, stuff like that. This is just a fun, casual FPS game that you can play on your iPhone, your Android device, whatever device that you have, and just have a good time. So that is where I truly believe that a weapon like this really shines, in that it's just a fun weapon, and whenever you do get a kill when using that weapon, it just rewards you with such a high amount of happiness, honestly, when you kill somebody with using that, because you really feel like you did deserve to get that kill. You feel like you really earned it. There are certain weapons in Pixel Gun 3D which are so easy to get kills with, like the Stormhammer and the Prototype, and that they just don't really reward you a lot when you get somebody. You get the kill and you're just like, okay, cool, I just killed someone, that's great. But with this weapon, when you get a headshot against somebody and they have a super powerful weapon like the Stormhammer, and you can successfully take them out when using just your Harpoon Gun, it's just the greatest feeling in the world, and that is why I really do enjoy using this weapon, guys. So, really, it's definitely a weapon which is a lot more fun to use. It's not necessarily the most powerful one in the world, but it still is a ton of fun to use, and that is why I like it so much. Now, like I said before, this is a weapon with a bullet travel time, so you definitely really can't use this weapon too well in a medium to long range map. Stick to close range, and that is where this weapon will shine. Like, Infected Prison here is a very good map for this weapon. Silent School is another good one. Pizzeria, all of those maps are very good weapons, or maps for those weapons, and they'll give you some great gameplay. Honestly, I think the absolute best place to use this weapon is in that long, big hallway in the middle of the Silent School match, where everybody seems to be conglomerating at certain times in the match. If you just stand there at the edge of the hallway, firing down the hallway sporadically, left and right, strafing around like this, then you are bound to kill a lot of people in a very short amount of time. To give you an example, I've actually been trying to record this video for 2 days straight now, but when I was trying to record earlier, I had managed to get myself an ultra kill in about 4 seconds going down that hallway in Silent School, and that's kind of a common occurrence when using this weapon. It is very easy to get that, and that is why I do enjoy using this weapon so much. I love having the scope. I mean, I just can't get over the fact that the scope is such a necessary part of this weapon, and that really not many other weapons are as necessary to use the scope as this one. It is a very important feature to the weapon, and when you do use this weapon, you have to try to use the scope as much as you possibly can. If you can manage to find a match where not every single player in a close-range map is using something like the Prototype and the Stormhammer and stuff like that, you will be able to win matches without much struggle, as long as the people are not using super overpowered weapons and spamming them the entire length of the match. They are weapons that you can actually beat at times. Now, not all the time. If you do happen to unfortunately find somebody like this guy right here, who is directly right to the left of me with his Stormhammer, well, he's probably going to be able to take me out, just because with the Stormhammer, it has a little blast radius, and that is why that weapon is much better for the extremely close-range gameplay, as opposed to this one, which is better at medium close-range gameplay. So, just thought I'd point that out. If you ever do encounter somebody with, like, the Stormhammer and stuff like that, try to stay as far away as you possibly can while still being able to kill them, and that is how you can manage to kill those people. Never get as close as you possibly can with the Stormhammer people, because if you can manage to stay far away from them, that is how you will be able to kill them. And I know it's very, very difficult to kill these people. It seems like it's the only weapons that people can actually use now in Pixel Gun 3D. I mean, I understand they obviously can't really use some of the assault rifles and stuff like that very well in this game, but guys, if you're watching this and you spam the Stormhammer all the time, try to use different weapons once in a while to actually make it a more fun experience for you, because, like I said earlier, it's all about fun. Pixel Gun is all about fun, and the Stormhammer really is not really one of those weapons where it just provides you with so much fun when you use it. At least that's in my personal opinion. Maybe other people think it's really fun to use, but I don't really think that it is a great and super fun weapon to use. So, yeah guys, the Harpoon Gun UP2, a great weapon, and a weapon very similar to the Shuriken Thrower, but in my personal opinion is a little bit better than the Shuriken Thrower. I am not entirely sure why the Shuriken Thrower is a weapon which has a much less lethality in terms of the actual lethality of the weapon, but the lethality and the amount of shots it takes to kill an enemy player is very similar between the Harpoon Gun and the Shuriken Thrower, and you will get very similar gameplay between both of those weapons, regardless which map you will join into. But if it does turn out to be a medium-range map, you might get some more kills when using the Harpoon Gun than the Shuriken Thrower, because, like I said, it does have the scope, and the scope can become very, very necessary at times. It's a great weapon, guys, and you should definitely consider it. It is a 2-shot to 3-shot headshot to an adamant armored player, and I can't see why anybody would not like that. That is a very, very high lethality for a weapon, and it will absolutely destroy a majority of the player that you encounter with this weapon. It's a great weapon, guys. Definitely consider it, but there are a few limitations as to when I would actually recommend this and when I would not. So if you are watching this video and you already have the shuriken thrower and you are very, very tight on coins in Pixel Gun 3D and you're not sure if you really want to get this weapon because you just think it's going to be so overwhelmingly better than the shuriken thrower, I'd honestly say probably not to get this weapon just because its amount of shots to kill an adamant armored player and its amount of power is really not that much different than the shuriken thrower. The main difference is the fact that this thing has a scope and the shuriken thrower does not. So if you are very tight on coins and you're not really sure if this is really worth the amount of coins that it is and gems and stuff, then I'd probably say to avoid getting this thing because it's really not that much different than the shuriken thrower. But if you are not tight on coins and you really want to have basically a shuriken thrower with a scope, basically the shuriken thrower on mini steroids, not insane steroids like you would say the exterminator is a like deadly I don't know, what is it called, the deadly viper on steroids. It's not like that, not that much of a big difference, but if you wanted a slightly more powerful shuriken thrower, then go right ahead and get this thing because this thing is a lot of fun to use and you'll have a great time when using it. Now, if you are somebody who is really not that great with the bullet travel time weapons, and I'm pretty sure a majority of the people watching this have at least one of those weapons, like the shuriken thrower, the razor thrower, the laser disc thrower, whatever one you have, you probably have one of them. And if you do use those weapons and you aren't very good with them, you should probably avoid using the harpoon gun because if you're not good with those ones, you're probably not going to go too well with this one. So, thought I'd point that out because it's not like just because this weapon has a scope, you're going to get so much better gameplay than those ones. If you don't really know how the weapon works, then you're not going to get better gameplay with even the scoped version of it. Now, there are a few things I would recommend if you do use this weapon to actually help increase your accuracy when using it. Definitely use the scope as much as you can. Obviously, in a map like Infected Prison, it is such a close-range map that a lot of the times you don't actually need to use the scope. But if you use the scope as much as you can, you will get much more accurate gameplay and it will be a lot better time for you. Also, if you use this weapon, it does require a lot of skill in terms of knowing how the enemy players play in the match. You cannot join a match for your very first time when using this weapon the second after you buy it and expect to get a monster kill within the first 3 seconds. It's not going to work out with this. You have to learn how the weapon works and you have to kind of master the way that the bullet travel time works. In a map like Infected Prison, it is a little bit more easy because it is such a small hallway that you're pretty much guaranteed to kill somebody if they are inside the hallway. But if you are in a larger range map like Paradise Resort or something like that, it will prove to be a lot more difficult because people will be jumping around, bouncing all over the place with very sporadic movements, and it'll be pretty difficult to determine where they are. So, if you see that the people that you are playing with in a match aren't really the most talented players in the world, and they seem to move in very systematic ways, where they may only move left for a period of time, then you can fire ahead of them. Say they are about this range away from me, that doorway, and say they are about where my crosshairs are. You would fire about right here to actually guess where you think they are, and by the time that they reach that position, the arrow will hit them. So it does require a lot of skill. You have to kind of expect where you think the enemy players will be, and it's also a lot of luck because a lot of the times you're going to think that the enemy player will be in a certain area, and a lot of times they will not. So it is a pretty big guessing game, guys, and that is why I recommend staying in the close range gameplay because you can have pretty much the highest possibility of hitting somebody with doing that. In Paradise Resort, it will be very, very difficult to hit them. It will be very, very inaccurate, and it'll be pretty difficult to kill pretty much anybody besides maybe inside the base of the lighthouse and areas like that. So that is pretty much it, guys. I don't really have much else I need to say about the harpoon gun other than those specific things. If you want a really cool, basically shuriken thrower with the scope, go for this one. But if you aren't very good with the bullet travel time weapons like the snowball gun and the shuriken thrower and stuff like that, probably best to stay away from this thing because obviously this is a weapon like a lot of the others in Pixel Gun 3D where it's not for everyone. there are certain weapons in Pixel Gun 3D where you can confidently say they're probably for everyone, and the prototype would probably be one of them, the Storm Hammer would be another, the Secret Forces rifle like the guy has, and a lot of the area damage weapons would be weapons for everyone. But this is not one of those weapons. It is not for everyone, and you kind of have to risk a lot. Basically, follow those things that I said there, and if you actually followed them correctly, then you should probably get some pretty decent gameplay with this weapon. But it requires a lot of practice, guys. I didn't first begin a match here for my very first time and then get an ultra monster kill type thing and win the entire match, because that's not going to happen with the Harpoon Gun. So I thought I'd just let you guys know on that. But other than that being said, that's pretty much it for my review on the Harpoon Gun. I really hope you guys did enjoy this. If you guys did, then be sure to hit that like button, comment, favorite, and subscribe to my YouTube channel for more Pixel Gun 3D weapon reviews. Be sure to go check out the other weapon reviews that I do have on my channel. I took a very, very long time trying to review this weapon because for some reason my commentating skills were not very good on Friday and Saturday, so I apologize for not uploading the past 2 days. I literally tried for about 6 hours in total, and it just did not work out in my favor. But I finally did complete it, and I'm very, very happy. I really do enjoy this weapon, and I really want it to be the next weapon review for you guys, and hopefully I'll see more people using this in the near future. So, with that being said, thank you guys for watching, and I will see you all in the next episode.